Well, welcome back to another episode of Buffalo Happy Hour. Mike, what's going on?
Derek, we're outside for the third time in our history, which is super exciting.
There we go.
Unplanned matching of shirts, which we should probably figure out offline because
With the green background, too.
with the green background. So this is really poorly planned. But we have a new friend and a new business on, so we should start there with introductions and titles if they do so exist, and then we'll dive into all things you.
All right, sounds good. I am Ron from Buffalo Bartenders, LLC, current owner of the Buffalo Pod. We just took possession of the portable bar trailer about 2 weeks ago, so we're super excited to get this thing rented out and see some people at tailgates.
That's awesome.
So is that where you're most hopefully going to get a lot of people is tailgates and stuff like that? Like, who are you marketing to?
We do a lot of weddings, a lot of graduation parties, things like that. So, the tailgate, I don't want to say we're putting ourselves just in the tailgate, thing, because we're only with 7 or 8 games a year. That's not going to be my money maker. So,
Right.
as great as the tailgates are, I think those are going to be my most fun events. We're definitely going to be looking more towards the weddings and graduations, private parties, things like that.
So how does this business work with permitting and the whole SLA thing? Because it's essentially a lot of beer, right?
Correct.
And then what else do you guys offer? But then how does that work legally?
So the way that we typically do business is that it's a BYOB situation. So we bring the party to you, but you have to supply the booze. We will supply all your non-alcoholic beverages, things like that. Now, there are situations where we do have to go out and get a license. In those situations, we're only able to get the temporary New York State beer, wine, and cider license. So we can't go full-blown bar for every event that we do. But if you do supply it, we can pour it, and we're good to go. There's no SLA implications on that.
Because the person that's your client, per se, supplies their own fluids.
Correct.
That's
Correct.
wonderful.
So we're fully insured. We carry a couple different policies just to make sure you're fully covered, throughout the entire event. But that's how we kind of handle things.
So from an age standpoint, though, like if we have a huge party at my house and there's people underage, but I provide you all the alcohol, you still have to check everything.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, we're checking IDs from every single person that we,
Sure.
well, I shouldn't say every single person, but if you look under 30, we're probably going to ID you. All of our bartenders are tip certified, which is a lot of safe serving situations, how to check IDs, things like that. So we do our best to make sure that we're not serving anyone that's underage. And I mean, that's the best we can do.
Sure.
So how did this whole thing start?
Actually started during COVID, believe it or not.
Okay.
I became an out-of-work bartender, and I was trying to figure out ways to make money. And I didn't want to go to a desk job. I'm not a desk guy. I never have been. Never really want to be. So I started doing little private events, 25 people, backyard, stuff like that. And I just thought it was going to be a means to an end to pay some bills at the time. And sure enough, COVID kind of ends, and restrictions come off, and we start bartending bigger events. And the requests just kept coming. I was never expecting it to be what it turned out to be today. We're currently the secondary and the primary bartending service for Akron Acres, and then Turning Point Homestead out near Darien Lake. So they're another one of our big clients.
What's the market like this before you got in? Like, did you think even mobile bartending or bartender for hire was going to be a thing?
I did and I didn't. I did because, all the years I bartended, everyone's like, hey, can you come work this private event for me, this party for me, this. And I always did it, kind of cheap, just to make some extra cash, whatever. And while I was working, I never thought of even trying this. And then when I was out of work, I was like, well, I got to try something. And here we are.
That's fascinating because, I mean, thinking of having a party, you don't really, I guess, think of having somebody make your cocktails because everyone thinks that they're a cocktail, like they can make cocktails and pour drinks, and then you find out your entire bar is sticky because you spilled everything. So
for sure.
It's really interesting that this business is taking off the way it is because it's going to alleviate a lot of stress when it comes to planning for parties and all that, because now you just got to provide the booze and then you're good to go.
I think that's what people like so much about this is that there's somebody else that's kind of restricting people. So if you've had too much, it's easy for me to say, hey, let's slow down a little bit. Whereas if it's your party, you may not say that to your guests because you don't want to make them upset or have them leave mad. But nobody cares what the bartender says to a guest. So, I think that's really what's kind of propelled this business into what it's become today is the safety aspect of it all.
So you've been a bartender basically your whole life. Whereabouts? You don't have to name places, but where were you?
I did a lot of work down on Chippewa.
Okay.
I've pretty much worked at, I don't know, I'd say probably 50% of the bars in this area at some point or another. Spent a lot of time at Wild Wings, so I have a huge corporate background. So I think that kind of plays in all the little details of things and stuff like that. But yeah, too many to name.
Were you always the de facto bartender at any parties that you hosted yourself?
I tried not to be. When you're hosting your own thing, you kind of want to have a good time, and you don't want to, and I did always find myself behind the bar, though. And I think some of the times, and my friends are going to hate me for this, but it was so they didn't drink the good stuff at my house.
Oh, yeah.
And I could pour the other stuff. But I tried not to be.
There's some comfort, though, being behind your own bar. Like, I'm always like that at my house. I'm always behind my bar.
No, it's a definite power stance. I mean, especially if it's your own place, like it just kind of makes sense. Like it's your house, it's your bar. Where else would you rather be? Unless it's kind of like the corner end bar spot. That's like the classic where it's like, oh, that's where he sits. I mean, it's just kind of how that goes. But otherwise, those are pretty much the only two options.
Yeah, I think so. I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
So back when you were being hired for like house parties or whatever, would you bring your own bar or would you post up in someone's kitchen? Like, how does that work?
It really depended on the situation. A lot of times they'd set me up at a table and
a 6-foot foldable.
Yeah, the
with a
table that most people are
tablecloth.
jumping through.
Yeah.
But that's typically what it ended up being. And then like a lot of times my bottles would just be behind me on the kitchen counter. Now we've grown to the point where we have 3 portable bars. So we literally pull up. They're metal frame portable bars. It just looks nicer than posting up on a table. Tables are just, I don't know. I can't even.
No, it makes sense.
I can't even go on it.
Yeah, right.
How did this come about? I mean, this is like wired for electrical, which I'm not positive if the shots are fully going to
No, they won't.
capture that. Yeah, I mean, this thing's like powered.
I got to give it up to the previous owners. They did an amazing job building this thing out. Whatever they had in their head was exactly what I wanted. And when it came up for sale, I was like, man, I just got to have this. And I'd been looking around for a long time. Custom jobs are anywhere between $60,000 and $100,000, and this was
Not bad.
substantially cheaper than that. So I just had to pull the trigger, and here we are.
So before you bought this and you were still doing these house parties, were you thinking to yourself, I need to expand? Like what? Because that's a pretty big leap, is just being a bartender for hire and then owning a substantially large motor vehicle that you can use.
And that's like a large conversation with the spouse. Like,
100%.
Hey,
That was the scariest part of the whole thing.
right, are you cool with me owning the driveway?
Yeah, well, thankfully it's not going to be that much longer. Otherwise, I might literally not be here anymore. But yeah, to answer your question, I mean, it just, I'd been looking around for so long, and this came about, and I just kept looking, and I'm like, man, the price is right. The wife, once she saw it, she was like, you got to do this. She's like, this is what you're meant to do. And everything fell into place. So I get laid off in January. My bookings are through the roof just for the bartending thing. And I just kept saying to myself, if I lose this, I'm going to be so pissed that I didn't take the leap and take the chance. Because, like Jordan says, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And
Michael Scott.
Yeah, Michael
him
Scott.
too.
The more important one, obviously.
Right. Right.
So it was more opportunistic, where you saw this opportunity and you're like, I'm just going to go for it.
Yeah. A friend of mine had actually told me that it was up for sale.
Oh, wow.
I looked, and again, it's nice that it's local. I could
So
go.
it was local.
It was, yep.
Oh, okay.
So they did a lot of work with 97 Rock at Big Tree Inn when they first started. And again, it just happened to happen.
So do you offer options where you bring the alcohol? Like I see you have a fridge here kind of for beers and stuff like that. Is that a possibility at all?
There is that possibility. We prefer that you do a BYOB situation. That will eliminate the need for us to pull any kind of licensing. We can pull a license for you, but it's only going to be a beer, wine, and cider license.
Right.
And New York State's kind of a stickler on what we need to do to get that license. So there's a lot of legwork that goes into it. So if we can avoid it, we try to at all costs.
No doubt.
So you got this awesome thing. You bring it home for the first time. You're thinking to yourself, am I going to get bookings? What's going to happen? Is this going to take off? And then you get that first booking. Can you walk us through kind of your thought on that first booking and what people were saying about it? Because I feel like it's still new.
It's very new. And, a lot of the bar trailers in the area are tap trailers. So they pull up, there's beer or wine or whatever on them. This is a completely different thing. We're bringing a complete party to you. We have the patio, the refrigerator, like you said. But our first booking, I kind of had in the bag already. I knew this was happening. And a good friend of mine lives in Philly, and he has season tickets for the Bills. He's a huge Bills fan. So he said to me, if you buy this thing, I'm booking the home opener.
Nice.
And I said, all right, well, that makes my life easy.
Yeah.
So now I have a nice, my first booking in. I've only had it 2 weeks. So every time I've opened this thing on my street, I spend more time talking to people than I do, like, hanging out with anybody that's here because everyone wants to talk about it.
Sure.
And now I'm starting to finally see the bookings come in. So it's kind of nice.
That's so cool. How does this thing fold out?
There's a great wench behind me with a couple of hinges up top. And it's super simple. I mean, setup's like about a 30-minute job. That's if everything goes smoothly and your land is pretty level. It's not a hard job at all.
One man or two man job to unfold it.
I do it myself in about 30 minutes.
Wow.
It takes longer for us to set up our podcast equipment than it does for him to assemble his bar.
Yeah,
Can we talk about that for a second?
That's an actual problem then, Derek. But yes, I agree with you. It's honestly just remarkable at how this whole thing operates from top to bottom. And it's super exciting because it's almost limitless. You can do damn near anything. Any party.
As long as I have,
what someone classifies a party.
Yeah, as long as I have the room to pull it in somewhere, I mean, we can set it up pretty much anywhere. It's just a matter of how much room you have.
How does this work with, like, DOT? Isn't this, like, a class thing?
We're just under every...
Which is what, 10,000?
According to Brian, the old owner, I don't want to go into numbers because if I'm wrong, I don't want to
No, for sure.
have someone on the DOT come back and,
Yeah,
and
right.
talk to me. But according to the previous owner, everything is just under
That's
where
amazing.
it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
So length is under.
No, length is definitely under because
Yeah.
it's length and then total poundage. And if you're under 10,000, then you don't need like a certain trailer and then a certain truck to pull it.
Well, it's under 10,000.
It's got to be.
Yeah, today we're under 10,000.
I mean, I had a big lunch.
What is capacity? Do you have to file stuff like that? Like how many people you can fit in here?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Because it's open, right?
Yeah, it's
Just jump off if something.
I think because it's not a brick and mortar, there's not really an occupancy thing.
Sure.
My understanding is he kind of put it at 25.
Okay.
But I will tell you that he had 47 people on here once just to test it to see where they could get it to. And nothing broke, but I don't want to push it.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
Far.
So our cameras obviously can only capture so much. They see the foliage behind me, the black background behind you. Can you describe a little bit what you're entering when you come in here?
Yeah, so as soon as you come up the patio, you have a nice seating area with a nice fire pit ready to go. Seating for 4. Or we can put all high tops out there depending on what your situation is. It's kind of nice to have the patio furniture out there for occupancy reasons. It kind of keeps people from overcrowding the patio area. We have a great buffalo wall that was hand painted, and I can't remember her name. Different colored buffaloes. We're calling that kind of our selfie wall.
Oh, cool.
We have a great little mini refrigerator that holds about, 60 to 80 beers in there, and a full bar area, and a 70-inch TV for any games you want to watch, or
And surround sound.
surround sound too. Forgot about that.
Yeah, which is clutch.
Are you thinking about doing, like, you've had it for 2 weeks, so obviously, like, no crazy plans are in the works, but do you have ideas of what you want to do?
I mean, the tailgate thing I think is going to be huge, but I also want to reach out to like Thaw Fest and Barrel Fest and things like that, and see if they want to offer it for some kind of VIP experience or grow it that way. I mean, Borderlands, for example. I mean, I think it could be a huge.
I mean, like Food Truck Tuesday.
Food Truck Tuesday, or remember like when you were young and you went to Warped Tour and there was that monster truck there that was a huge hit. Everybody loved going up on that.
Yeah.
That's like this. Like you bring this to any event.
That was so unhealthy.
Oh, 100%.
They were
still
just
struggling.
handing out
Yeah.
energy drinks,
Yeah.
and it was like 106 outside.
But still, like a Canal Side concert, and you can pull this up, and you're just back there.
Yeah.
And
Not-
see,
yeah.
those type of situations, I'd gladly rent it to small businesses.
Oh, sure.
You know, because then I don't have
Absolutely.
to worry about the licensing thing, and they can handle all that on
Yeah.
their end. Especially if they already have the licensing agreements in place.
Just Delaware North.
Yeah,
Just be like, hey,
that's
you want
what-
to stock it with your own concessions?
Yeah, right.
Like, it's not going to be difficult for you.
that's the next thing on my list to do is actually start contacting local businesses and see, hey,
Yeah.
this is available for rent if you need it. If you don't, that's great. But I think it'd be a great add-on to a lot of different
Absolutely.
brewery events and things
Yeah.
like that.
So somebody goes on the website, which is what?
There's 2 websites right now. BuffaloBartenders.com is our main website. That has all of our information about booking the pod, booking bartenders. You know, if you're doing a wedding or graduation, whatever, all the information's on there. The other one that's currently with a lot of the marketing is BuffaloPod.com. There's just a bunch of pictures for you to take a look at the pod, and then there's also a questionnaire as to what your event is and how I can reach out to you to, make this happen.